What is up, everybody? Mr. Curtis here. Welcome to unit number 6. We're in the mid to late 1900s, so we're kind of getting close to present day. We're getting there, everybody. We're getting there. This is 6.1. This is on the Cold War starts. Hopefully, at some point in your educational career, you've learned a little bit about the Cold War. And me saying the Cold War isn't some crazy concept that you haven't heard about before. But just in case, we're going to get into some details here. The Cold War is going to be between the United States and the Soviet Union. United States seen here symbolized by Uncle Sam, and Russia here, which is usually symbolized by a bear, with the symbol of the Soviet Union, which is Russia, and the areas they take over, which is the hammer right here, and the sickle symbolizing workers and farmers. And you're going to see a yellow star on most communist countries. But let's get into this. Enough about the flags and all that other good stuff. So here's the deal. I want to start using this term throughout all the rest of these videos because people are really struggling on the CRQs, which is historical circumstance. Historical circumstance, again, refers to what leads into this, almost like what was the cause of this thing that we're talking about. And it's usually a big event, something major. So the historical circumstance of the Cold War, if that's a question on the CRQ, here it is. This is what the historical circumstance of the Cold War is. World War II happens. The Nazis are the enemy in terms of the U.S. perspective, and the U.S. and the Soviet Union, Russia, joined forces together to fight Germany. However, the U.S. and the Soviet Union do not like each other. It's the old saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. For example, like if I break up with a girl and then I break up with another girl, those two girls who might actually not like each other become friends because they have a mutual hatred towards me. And by friends, I put that in quotes. They might be out to get me, to do something evil to me, to key my car, to egg my house. This is not speaking from experience, I swear. And as a result of this, those two team up. But they're not really friends. They just have a common enemy. And that's what the U.S. and the Soviet Union's like. They have a common enemy in the Nazis. And then the war ends. They defeat the Nazis. And the two kind of stare at each other. And they're the two superpowers left. Remember, France fell early. Britain's kind of in a little bit of disarray after World War II. And these two are kind of staring at each other like it's just you and us left. And that is the historical circumstance. And what the difference is between the two countries, it is a huge, what is called, big fancy word here for everybody. Try and use this in a sentence today, ideological, which is just the ideas or the concepts between the two countries. What makes America, the United States, what makes the Soviet Union. And for the most part, the U.S. is capitalist, meaning that you can own, buy, sell whatever you want in this country, and that the government doesn't tell you what you have to buy and spend. We also have a democratic government where you can, with freedoms, where you can elect the person who you choose, who you think best represents your values. That's the United States. I hope you all know that capitalism, democracy is what we do here economically, politically. The Soviet Union, on the other hand, is a communist or socialist country. They do not have democracy. They do not have free and fair elections. They limit people's speech. And they say, we're going to limit your speech because it's for the betterment of everybody. They also have a communist economy where the government decides and owns what is being produced. You don't open a business in the Soviet Union in 1945 like a landscaping business. That kind of stuff just doesn't happen. You don't try and make as much of a profit as you can. What the focus in communism is communal, where everyone's working together for the betterment. And sometimes in the eyes of communists, you need to give up rights in order to all your rights in order for the betterment of everybody. So these two opposing ideas are against each other. All right. They're going to compete in 3 different ways. And we're going to go over them right now. One is getting countries to ally with them, to get more countries on your side. Number 2 is building up weapons, specifically nuclear weapons. And 3 is the space race. These two sides never directly fight each other. That's why it's called a Cold War, because it's never a hot war is when people are actually fighting. This is just the two sides compete with each other. There's a thought that they're going to go to war, but it never actually happens. Hence why it's called a Cold War. Here's number 1. Ready? Coming back here. Allies, weapons, space. Number 1, the alliance system. There are 2 defensive alliances that exist during the Cold War. One is with the democratic countries. All right. That is called NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It still exists today. And it is a very hot topic, and it's been a hot topic over the past decade of U.S. involvement in this. So the U.S., Canada, and all these democratic countries after World War II joined together. And they say to each other, if any country ever invades any of us, we will all join together to fight against that country that invaded you. So it's an alliance, not an offensive alliance, just defensive. So you have to be invaded first, and then all the countries come to your aid. NATO has only been called into existence one time in its history. There's only one time that one of these countries was invaded, and that was September 11th. And all the NATO countries did come and help in the war in Afghanistan to help for retribution against those attacks. The communist countries have their own alliance called the Warsaw Pact. And Warsaw is the capital of Poland, and that's where this agreement signed. And that's the red countries up here. So these are our two sides. Some countries around the world are like, I want no part of this Cold War at all. I don't want to be on the NATO side. I don't want to be on the Warsaw Pact side. I just want to kind of be neutral and stay out of this. And most of those countries are colonies who are going to get their independence after World War II. And they either one of two things they decide to do. One, they're like, I don't want any part of you guys. Stay as far away as possible. On the other flip side is some countries say, I'll take money from the Soviet Union and I'll take money from the United States, and let's see what happens. These countries are called non-aligned. To be aligned, if you align your wheels or tires, they are all together in unison. To be non-aligned is to be separate from what's going on. So these countries are not together with the US or the Soviet Union. They kind of stay off on their own. 2 and 3 here. One, and we'll spend a lot of time talking about this in class, is the arms race. By arms, I don't mean my arm here. I mean weapons arms. And the arms race, specifically for a context of the Cold War, is nuclear, which is nuclear weapons, I'm sure you've all heard of, proliferation, which is a big fancy word and just means growth. So in this case, we're talking the buildup of nuclear weapons or nuclear proliferation. What happens in 1949 is the Soviet Union, the USSR, Russia, tests successfully an atomic bomb. And everyone in the United States freaks out. And the belief is, oh my God, they tested it. What are we going to do? We're all going to die. So the US starts building up their nuclear armaments or their weapons to the point where we have 33,000 weapons in 1966, an insane amount, absolutely ridiculous. You could have blown the earth up like 10 times over. But that's nuclear proliferation. The Soviet Union does the same thing. They build up their weapons. And there's a tension in the 50s and 60s that we're all going to die of a nuclear explosion or nuclear attack. That's the arms race. They also compete. So they compete over countries, get on their side. They compete over the arms race and then the space race. Who can get to outer space first? Who can send something into space first? Who can send a dog into space first? Who can send a human into space first and bring this human back down? Who can get to the moon first? Who can walk on the moon first? This is a way to compete. And in 1957, the Soviet Union launches the first satellite into space. It is called Sputnik or Sputnik. And in 1969, the U.S. astronauts walk on the moon for the first time, which is a huge monumental event. We'll talk more about the space race stuff in class as well. But I just want to point it out. Coming back to the arms race, my last thing I just want to show you is this is how legit the fear was. And this wasn't in every household, but there are these fallout shelters, these areas that you could build underneath your house. You could have stockpiles of food or these little pods almost where you would live if in case a nuclear explosion ever happens. In West Hampton Beach Middle School, in the basement, there's a fallout shelter in case a nuclear attack came to West Hampton Beach where students could go and be safe. So it's a legitimate fear. It's a legitimate concern. And we'll talk more about it in class. So that's the start of the Cold War. That's what I got. You got any questions? You write it down. Let me know. I'm out.